evening, viewers. Welcome to yet another episode of Revival House Talk Show, where we're here to engage, to influence, to educate, but most of all, to enable you, to empower you to be able to realize your dream and to be able to make an impact wherever you are. Tonight, we've got yet another inspiring speaker with us. Tonight, we'll be discussing health literacy. Yes, the ability to be able to digest the information in regards to health literacy and to be able to make informed decisions towards improving our health. Right. My speaker for tonight is Dr. Olivia. Dr. Olivia, welcome to the show and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you.
Right. Without much further ado, Dr. Olivia, tell us, who is Dr. Olivia and what inspired you towards the journey of becoming a doctor?
Yes, the name is Dr. Olivia Ario. What inspired me to become a doctor? I mean, it feels like a few years back now. I've always like to care for people. I've always liked to be there for people. And I felt that actually growing up, well, initially I've not always wanted to be a doctor, actually. I went through the phase of wanting to be an artist, then I wanted to be an air hostess, until really, I think it was in GCSE level, really, that I started thinking about wanting to be a doctor, wanting to make a difference in people's life. And naturally, I'm quite a caring person, so I felt that was a great way that I could express myself as an individual. So the journey has been interesting. I qualified as a doctor back in 2008, so I have been practicing as a doctor for the last 12 years. I qualified, I trained in the United Kingdom, for out of the 12 years, 5 years of that I've been working as a GP. So I work in the NHS. So it's been an interesting journey. I'm enjoying it. I feel privileged really to be in that position, to be able to make a change in people's health and to inspire people as well. Yeah.
Right. I know this might be just a little bit scrutinizing you. As in England, we all know we are the minority. What challenges have you faced in terms of achieving your goals?
I think, honestly, I wouldn't say I've really faced any difficulties because of my color or because of being of Black origin, really. And I think it doesn't mean that there isn't those problems or those issues of possible discrimination because you are part of a minority group. But I think, it comes down to the individual and your beliefs, believing in yourself, believing that you've got something to offer to your family, but also even to the wider community, believing that you are important, that the skills that you have can be a blessing and can be of help to other people. So I have always, thankfully, been raised up to have that confidence and that belief. And so I think I haven't allowed the fact that I am part of a minority to really affect me in achieving my goal. And I think that is really important. We need to try and put that in the lives of our children to let them know that they have something to offer. And the fact that they are different actually makes them unique. And that's a positive thing, not a negative thing.
Oh, that's a very good thing. It's self-belief and the willpower to achieve your goals. That's a great point there. Right. Let us discuss now the elephant in the room, the pandemic. I believe you've seen the reports out there that how it has affected the Bami community. What is your take towards this?
In terms of the COVID infection, yes. We, of course, since this has started, it's become very clear that unfortunately, the majority of people that have been affected are actually for the BAME community. So we're talking about Black and ethnic minorities. they found out that actually we are more likely to have the coronavirus infection, also have more severe form of it, likely to die from it. And actually, even in my profession, we've had a lot of losses in terms of healthcare professionals in the BAME community. Of course, this is sad, and I think it's a wake-up call really to our community, particularly when it comes to health issues, to really start taking responsibility and ownership personally, in making sure we're looking after ourselves. Of course, there's various reasons that have been given why this is the case, in terms of why more people from our community have been affected in this illness. And one of them is that because of vitamin D deficiency. We know, from many years that people of dark skin do not absorb sunlight very well. Of course, we do get vitamin D. The main source is sunlight. So if that's the case, we find that a lot of people from the Black and ethnic minority groups are always deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D is important because it helps to support the immune system. And we know from previous infections that actually, if you have low levels of vitamin D, you are more susceptible to viral infections, and particularly infections that affect the lung. And actually, in this infection in COVID-19, we found out that actually the reason why people in our community are more likely affected is because of this. So that's one factor. Or there's also been a concern of possible discrimination and obviously racism in the workplace. Because like I said, a lot of the people that have actually died have been nurses and doctors of the BAME community. So it's raised the issue that, there's something going on in the workplace. And certainly, people have raised the point that they have been made to look after the sickest of patients and without adequate, PPE. And obviously, this is a concern, but it is being addressed by the NHS. But I think this is probably not just because of COVID-19. Possibly, obviously, discrimination has been going on for many years.
So and I think it's going to highlight other aspects of discrimination within the professional.
Yes. I think obviously, often if people are in the workplace where they are the minority, often people don't speak up, when things are not the way it should be, because of fear of being either losing their job or being looked down upon. So I think maybe that has played a part of people not feeling confident to speak out, even though they felt they've been discriminated against, which of course is not right. And this has been handled. Actually, there's a lot of meetings, at different levels in the NHS, which is trying to find out, obviously, what is going on in the background. The other reason, which has been pointed out, is possible multi-generational households. So obviously, I remember when growing up back home, we have a big compound house, and you have the grandparents in the house, you have grand aunties, great grand aunties, everyone is in the house. Exactly. And even here, we do have people in the BAME community living like that, particularly in the Asian community. And then obviously that makes it difficult, particularly in this current situation of COVID-19 with social distancing and self-isolation, because if you live in a house where there's a lot of people in the house, who possibly the space is not there. So, and that obviously can make people more at risk of taking infection from each other. Particularly if there's elderly people living in the house, who are obviously the more vulnerable people that are more at risk of this infection. So there's so many reasons really why this has happened.
So many combination factors that has made us the vulnerable community to the exposure of COVID. Right. How would you, in your profession or in your knowledge and in your experience, how would you advise the BAME community how to improve their health, not only towards the COVID, but in future moving forward?
Yes. I think it's really important. I cannot stress this enough. I think this is the time for each and every one of us to begin to take intentional steps regarding our own health. don't leave your health to somebody else. Don't leave it to your spouse. Don't leave it to your children. Don't leave it to the healthcare professionals. God has blessed you with this body. Is your machine, is the thing that helps you to actually live your life. And without help, really, you are in danger of risking the things that are important to you. You're in danger of risking, losing your family, because if you are very unwell and you die, you're not here anymore. You are at risk of losing your job even, because I know many people that because of ill health cannot even work. That means that you cannot make income for yourself, to survive on. So, looking after your health is very important, and you cannot really, underestimate that. You cannot take it for granted, because life itself is a blessing, and you need to look after yourself. And that starts with simple things like, your nutrition. What are you congesting? What are you eating? What are you putting in your body? You need to make sure that you're making the right choices to eat healthy. Make sure that you're keeping physically active. Make sure you're exercising regularly, because there's so many benefits to that. Make sure that you are sleeping well. Making time to sleep. Most of us, we overwork ourselves. We don't give time to rest, and we are burnout, and so we need to make time to make sure that we are resting. Avoid stress. Most of us are stressed, not because of our own problem. We're just carrying someone else's problem on our head, So we need to make sure. Yes, we need to make sure we are avoiding stress and we're looking after ourselves. Make sure that you seek help, because what I find, particularly in our communities, that people don't seek help on time. They'll be self-medicating. When they have symptoms, they ignore it for a long time. So make time to go and see your doctor. Make time to have your health checks. Don't take it for granted. I always advise that at least once a year, even no matter how you're feeling, even if you're feeling fantastic, make time once a year to go and see your doctor, get your blood pressure check, get your sugar check, do some set of blood tests just to see.
And MOT.
Yeah, exactly. MOT, exactly. You need to have a body MOT. If you drive a car, there's no way you would drive the car for many years without taking it to the MOT to get it checked. How much more your body, which is your actually device that you're using to live your life. So you need to look after it. So it's so important. I can't stress that enough.
So simple steps: eat well, exercise, don't stress. So your mental well-being. What was the other one? Sleeping well. And I think sleep is one of the most paramount aspects, which we tend to ignore because obviously of our working patterns and also responsibilities.
Yes.
I think we try to kind of live here and live back home. You're trying to kind of manage both ways. And I think that is something that is of much importance towards the African communities, not only African community. I think sleep is one of the major aspects. That is me towards better health. And that's a great point. Right. Moving on, as now we can see now the lockdown is easing up gradually, and eventually maybe we'll be coming back to normality in full. I don't know whether when that is going to happen. What is your advice towards protecting ourselves? Because obviously the COVID thing is still out there.
Yes.
And we're not sure when this is going to end.
Yes.
I know there's speculations here and there, but the first step is to protect ourselves. Or just, how would you advise us?
Yeah, I mean, you made a valid point that actually this infection is still out there. Yeah. So this infection is a serious infection. It still is. Okay. If we think about it, within a very short space of time, we've had this infection hit, not just, one place in the country, but in the whole of the world. It's turned the whole world upside down. We have lost a lot of lives, like never before, within a short space of time. So this is a very serious infection, and we need to be aware of that. We should not be complacent. The fact that, they have eased the lockdown a bit, and I think, the decisions have been made mostly because of economic reasons, okay? Yeah. And because of that, we shouldn't get carried away and think, oh yeah, we have freedom now to just, go about. But I think we should still abide by what the government is telling us to do, what the World Health Organization is telling us to do. what Public Health England is telling us to do, and all the other equivalents that you may have in your countries for anyone that is listening to us, out of the country, UK.
Yeah.
So, we need to still make sure that we are observing our social distancing. It's important to avoid the risk of spread. We need to still make sure that we are observing our hand hygiene measures, so we are washing our hands, okay? It's important that we're still keeping in touch with our doctors if we need or we develop symptoms or if we are worried about our health, because it's not even just now. What we do now would also serve us for the future in terms of our health. So yes, there's that aspect of doing things like social distancing, hand washing, to help us, to stop the spread of the infection or even to become infected. But also generally regarding our health, we need to make sure we are looking after ourselves. We need to make sure that, if we are developing any new symptoms, it might not be because of the infection, but something else to do with our health. We need to reach out to our GPs, our doctors, and seek advice, seek help. Because one of the things that we've actually picked up in this season is that, other conditions, like things like diabetes, high blood pressure, even cancers, are being missed because people, the fear of, going to hospital or the fear of going to see my doctor because I don't want to get the virus, they are not actually seeking help, which is not good. So I think, the doctors, your GPs are still, working. They're doing telephone appointment, they're doing video consultations. In some cases, they will even see you. So still get on the phone and speak to a doctor if there's something not going right, okay? Like I mentioned before, make sure you're looking after yourself. So make sure you're eating right, building up your immune system, incorporate more vegetables in your diet, make sure you are networking with right people, because having people to support you is actually very good, not just for your physical well-being, but also for your mental well-being. Because this has been a very difficult time for all of us. Yeah.
Actually, you've mentioned a very important point there, because how the COVID has crippled our social ability, and most people are still living in fear and living in isolation, and obviously this is affecting their mental well-being. So, what would you, somebody who's listening to us and they're in that kind of a period where they're in isolation, they don't want to go out, and maybe they cannot be able to talk to anybody through the phone or whatever, for whatever reason. And they're mentally, obviously, their mental state of mind is being affected here. What would be your advice to them?
I think, you need to know that, every one of us has been affected, in one way or the other. You are not alone in this situation. And the thing to know is that even though we are lockdown, well, that's the term that we've been given or we all adopted, we are not locked out. We are not locked out, So even you need to make the most of your situation. And also you need to know that even though you are not being able to go out as much as you will, there's people around. There's social media now, there's phone there. Make use of your phone. You can have WhatsApp, you can do video, FaceTime with people. You can reach out to a friend on the phone. Definitely in the local communities, there's been organizations that are working really to support people. So you can always get on the phone, find out what is in your local council and seek help. Also, it's really important this time to remain positive, because it's so easy to focus on the negativity. Oh, everyone is dying, or people are sick, I am going to fall sick, It's easy to focus on the negative, but you need to make a choice every day to focus on the positive things, okay? The fact that you have life, the fact that you are alive, that's a good thing, so you need to focus on that. Try and read books, if you have things in your house, reach out and study. This is the time for you to focus on developing even yourself. So channel all that energy, instead of to the negative side, channel it to the positive side. Try and build up new skills, new habits, at home. I have started reading books like never before. I have some time now. I have some time now to do that. So you should do that. Make sure you're sleeping, because actually sleep can have a really negative impact on our mental health, because it makes us irritable when we don't get enough sleep. It can make us moody, and that is not helpful in this situation. So make sure that you're resting, you're treating yourself, give yourself a break, basically. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Yes, I think everything has its own advantages and disadvantages, and I think it's saying the positive side and running with it.
Yes.
And I can see I'm also learning new skills in terms of
Yes.
baking. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
important.
yeah. It is right. Moving kind of back into a different topic, but also related into COVID, because I think the underlying factors that you be considered as vulnerable. Diabetes, the prevalence of diabetes and high blood pressure within the Bami community. I was reading a report that we've got very high um, uh, people with high blood pressure and diabetes within Bami. Is it true? And if it is true, what are the reasons behind this?
Yeah, it is very true. That has been well established for many, many, many years that actually people in our community and the Black and ethnic
Yeah.
minority groups are more likely at risk of type 2 diabetes mainly, and also high blood pressure. And actually, if you look at the South Asian population, they are 6 times more likely to have type 2 diabetes compared to the general population, and we are not far behind. People of Black African origin and Caribbeans are 5 times more likely to have type 2 diabetes. We are also more likely to have the complications of this disease, like things like stroke, things like heart disease, things like kidney failure, and particularly with high blood pressure, people of African origin and the Caribbean origin are 3.5 times more likely compared to the general population to have high blood pressure. And often when we have it, we have the severe form of it. We tend to be on more medications, more than one medications, because of poor control. In terms of reasons, there's a few. One being socioeconomic factors, because we find that actually people in deprived areas are more likely to be susceptible to these diseases. And we know people of ethnic minorities tend to live in deprived areas, which means that often they are not getting the support they need. They are not being able to access adequate healthcare or quality healthcare, really, which really is a shame, isn't it? We live in a country where there is free service in terms of healthcare, and yet this can be the case as well. And also, of course, I from experience, I think also because of how we are in terms of how we eat, it is a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a problem, particularly in our community. We consume a lot of carbohydrates, starchy foods, which is a big source of sugar in our diet, and also the way we are really in terms of some of us eat very late in the evenings. So there's this is not a nutrition talk show, but those aspects play a part. For high blood pressure, it is known that because of salt retention, particularly Black people retain more salt. And salt actually can cause fluid retention, and that can cause blood pressure problems. So we know that for a fact because of how our body is made, which really we can't help with. We can't help with that. That means that we retain more salt, so we are more at risk of high blood pressure. But that's why it's so important, particularly when it comes to our diet, to make sure that we are reducing salt in our diet. If we can avoid it altogether, we should try, because I know, in our culture, salt is like a big part of our diet. Most people say, it wasn't tasty enough, and we will put the Maggi cube, we'll put the Knorr, we'll put all sorts of things, and they're all salt. Okay, so that's how we just need to start changing, our beliefs around food and how we use food, and make sure that we're doing the right things really to help us. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned a very important point there about type 2 diabetes. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, so how many types of diabetes then do we have? And what will be the symptoms? Well, how would I know I'm type 1? How would I know I'm type B? And yes, please enhance my skills and knowledge.
Okay, so there is two main. Actually, there's a few other rare forms of diabetes, but the two main that we all know is type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Yeah. So when we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about how the body deals with sugar. And in diabetes, you too much sugar in the bloodstream. Yeah. So in type 1 diabetes, really, what happens is that Okay, I think let me give you the basics. So when we eat normally, we get a rush of sugar. So whatever you eat, whether food or whether drink, your body then converts that into sugar. So your body then receive a high amount of sugar into the bloodstream from whatever you have eaten. Okay, but normally the body has a process of actually using that sugar, okay, or mopping it up from the blood. So your body will release something called insulin, which is a very important hormone. Yeah. It will release it from a gland called the pancreas, which is a very small but very important organ in the body, very at the back of your body, really. So insulin is released, and insulin acts like the mopper, really, to help your body to pick up all that sugar from the bloodstream into the cells. So your cells, of course, can use it as a source of energy so that your body can function the way it should, okay? Now, what happens in type 1 diabetes is for some reason, your body starts attacking the pancreatic cells, the cells that actually makes insulin. Now, this is not something that you have done. This is something that just happened. That's how it's a type of autoimmune. So your body is just attacking itself, okay? So the cells are damaged, which means that your body cannot make insulin at all, okay? So normally, people with type 1 diabetes, they will normally present very early on. It will be usually children, actually, that you see in young adults and in children, you will see type 1 diabetes because it's actually something that the body is doing itself, okay? Whereas type 2 diabetes, it happens more slowly. It tends to happen in older people, usually from about age 40 onwards. Of course, now, because of the Western society that we are in, because of the type of foods we eat, and our lifestyle, we're seeing it more, even in younger people, people in 25, really, in certain communities like the Asian group and in African groups, we're seeing it much earlier on. So type 2 diabetes, what is happening, your body can still make a level of insulin, but it's not making enough. So when there's a demand on the body, especially when you've eaten a large meal, you're not making enough insulin to actually pick up the sugars, okay? Or you are making enough, but your body is not really sensitive to it. So it's not using it appropriately. It's not using it adequately. So you can have like a large pool of sugar in your bloodstream, but your body is not still thinking, there's no energy here. There's no sugar, So you still have a large amount of sugar in the bloodstream. Now, what does that do? If you have too much sugar in the bloodstream, it's okay to eat a large meal, have a high load of sugar, and then your body sorts itself out. But you can imagine if for long periods of time, you are always having high levels of sugar in the bloodstream, problems start happening, okay? Because the moment your blood becomes sticky. And you imagine, when you like sugar, when you have sugar granules, and you put it in water, after a while it becomes sticky, if you touch it. That's what happens. Exactly. So your blood starts becoming sticky, okay? And then that increases risk of clots. That also causes damage to the blood vessels, okay? So then what happens in diabetes, in both type 1 and in type 2, is that you can start having damage to the blood vessels to the kidney. That's why you can have things like kidney failure in diabetes. You can have damage to the blood vessels to the eye. So diabetes is, a leading cause for blindness. We know that. So it can cause such a serious problem. You can have, damages to the brain, blood vessels. You can have problems like stroke. You can have problems like heart disease. So it has a lot of serious implications. You can definitely have damage to the nerves. I'm sure you've known people who have had amputations because of diabetes, because they lost sensation, feeling, because the circulation was not good anymore, and they actually lost their limb. And you can imagine this is serious. Indeed. This is not a joke at all. So diabetes is a very, very serious condition. Even though most people do not, particularly in type 2 diabetes, they might not have symptoms at all. Usually, like I said, it actually develops slowly. So it's possible to have diabetes and not actually have symptoms, type 2 diabetes. And that's why it's important to get your health checks. Don't take it for granted. Every year, make sure you get your MOT done, okay? Because often we do just pick it up because someone had a blood test and we picked it up, okay? And if we pick it up early, then we can do something to prevent the complications, okay? Than when we pick it up too late, when problems have already happened. I think you did mention something about symptoms, Patricia.
Yes.
Well, in serious cases, when people are really poorly controlled diabetes, or at the beginning, they might notice things like increased urination. So they find that they're peeing a lot, you know. They might also notice that they feel thirsty all the time. So they're drinking all the time. And I think people sometimes get this confused.
Right. Can it also happen to children, younger
Yes,
children as well?
yes. So type 1 diabetes is often in children, you know.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
symptoms they would present with will be, increased urination. They will present with feeling thirsty all the time. Now, the reason why you feel like peeing all the time is because normally, remember, sugar is actually needed by the body, because it's the body's main energy source, okay? So when we eat, the body doesn't want to throw away the sugar. The body actually needs it to hold on to it. But when we have diabetes, where there's too much sugar in the bloodstream, the body is overloaded. So the body thinks, okay, how can I help myself? So it starts peeing it out, okay? So that's why your kidney, which is sort of our system for clearing us, you know, in terms of urine, clearing waste products, will start pouring out sugar through your urine, you know. And I'm sure some of you, if you're listening to me, you've had diabetes or you've got diabetes. Maybe you saw your doctor tested your urine and said, you know, you've got sugar in your urine, and therefore likely you have diabetes, and that's the start of how you were diagnosed. So that's what happens. Your kidneys start pouring out, and you can imagine that's not good for the kidney, you know, because the kidney start overworking itself, and the kidney starts having holes as well, because your sugar molecules are quite big things, okay? And normally the kidney shouldn't be getting rid of it, but it has to do that. So you put more pressure on your kidney. That's why we get kidney damage, okay? So that's something to be aware of. Often people might feel just tiredness, you know? So it could be a non-specific symptom as feeling tired, but just not just a one-off, feeling tired all the time, you know? Might be a symptom. You feel like you're drinking all the time, you're feeling thirsty. That's because obviously you're losing a lot of fluid by peeing. So the body is, you know, needing that fluid balance. So you feel like drinking all the time. And often people get that confused, because some people think, oh, I'm drinking maybe because that's why I'm peeing too much, you know, and so they ignore that symptom, you know, but actually it's because there is a risk of diabetes. So when you're noticing symptoms that are not going away, you shouldn't ignore it. You know, you should try and seek help to know what is happening, okay? The other thing is that sometimes people might present with the complications, you know, with the complications of diabetes. So it must have been that they didn't observe the symptoms when it happened, or they ignored it to the point maybe they started noticing some changes in their vision. So now by then they've already got the complications of the disease, you know, and they saw the doctor before it was diagnosed. I've definitely know people who had a heart attack, you know, so they had the complications of the diabetes. They ended up in hospital because of a heart attack, and that's when they were found out to have diabetes, you know. So sometimes that's what happens.
So the key point here is not ignoring the symptoms, or just being aware. You know what? Sometimes it happens, and you know, as African, well, I would say for myself, you're like, oh, it's just it will go away. And most of the time, you're so much used to self-medicate ourselves and think, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I think you've mentioned a very great point there, is being self-aware and not taking things for granted and seeking medical advice immediately before it becomes more advanced.
Yes.
Right. And how would we manage diabetes? How do we manage diabetes? If somebody has been diagnosed with diabetes, I know there's medication, but I'm sure there are other things that will come alongside besides medication. So what will that be?
Yes. So I always say that prevention is better than cure.
All the time.
Yeah, prevention is better than cure, because you know, if you can do something to prevent yourself from getting a serious condition like you know, diabetes, then why don't you do it? Okay. So really, I think this is important for those people who are listening who may not have the diagnosis of diabetes. You know, you need to start doing the right things now. Okay. We know that a lot of the diseases that kill, like diabetes, we're talking about stroke, heart disease, we're talking about high blood pressure. We know 80% of them is due to lifestyle, okay? It's due to lifestyle, so it's due to diet, you know, what you eat, is due to exercise, the lack of exercise, is due to like things like smoking, things like alcohol, it's due to things like stress. Now, these are things that we can do something about, okay? So you need to start really looking after yourself, in terms of what you're eating. Make sure that you're eating healthy, okay? Now, we all know what healthy food is. If I put a plate of burger in front of you, right, and I put a plate of salad in front of you, you know the difference, right? We
But
know
you
the
see,
difference, but
it's
often
very
we don't do it.
enticing. The fast food, it's very enticing.
But it kills, okay? So
I
you need to
know.
make a choice what you want, okay? I'm not saying don't eat burger ever, yeah, but don't make it your main source of food. We need to move away from, eating processed foods, things that are manufactured, because we've gotten to used to that, oh, we are busy, we run busy life, I don't have time to cook, I don't have time to do this. So we live in that microwavable age. We want everything easy and quick, but that can lead to death.
Yes.
So you need to make a choice to make the right decisions about your health, and that comes with diet. Okay, make sure we exercise. Most of us, we don't do anything. We eat all the wrong things. We are not active at all. And when I say active, I don't mean you getting out of your house and getting into the car, or you just hopping on the train, or you just, getting on the lift because you just walked a little, distance. I mean, actually doing exercise and doing it regularly. That could be going for walks, go for brisk walks, make it regular. I think the key here is consistency, because some of us, we might do it here and there. We might exercise today. We won't do it again till next month. That is not going to get you the results you want.
Yeah, I'm very guilty.
Exactly. I think we can all be guilty of that, but you need to make a decision. 30 minutes. I mean, you have 24 hours in the day, all right? Make 30 minutes for yourself to do something that will serve you for a long time, to exercise. 30 minutes, in 24 hours is not bad at all. So try and make that time to exercise. Make sure you're eating right. If you're listening to me, if you smoke, please, this is the time to think about giving up on it, okay? Smoking has a lot of, health implications in terms of not just, risk of diabetes, heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, lung cancer. So it has a lot of implications. So you need to help yourself. If you drink alcohol, this is the time to give up on it, okay? And it's for yourself. You are so important. You are so valuable. You deserve to look after yourself, right? You are worth it. So make the effort to do that.
Yeah, we are what we eat. We are what we consume.
We are what we eat. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. The next point, in terms of blood pressure.
Yes.
Yeah. How do we understand the blood pressure reading and the BMI? Because to be honest, somebody might be there and we see whenever we go to the GP and they check us the blood pressure. Sometimes we don't understand the reading.
Yeah, I think it does get confusing.
Yeah, go on. Sorry. Yeah,
it does get confusing for a lot of people. Yeah, you are not the only one. Basically, when we're talking about blood pressure, we're looking at the pressure within the blood vessels. Okay, and basically that is important because remember your heart, which is the pump system, okay, of your body, which is really important. We can never do without our heart, okay? Because when you don't have a heart, well, you're probably dead, so we need the heart, okay? So your heart really needs a level of pressure to pump blood, okay, and into the blood vessels, which act like the pipes really of your body, to send vital nutrients, to send oxygen to the cells so that they can be able to function and do all the important things they do in the body. Okay, so to keep you well, really, yeah? Now, what happens in high blood pressure is that your level of pressure then in the heart and in the blood vessels is greater than normal, okay? Now, why does this happen, okay? This happens because over time, you get fat deposits. Okay, now where do we get fat? We get fat from the food we eat. Normally, when we eat, when the body uses it up, okay, whatever is left, it converts it as fat into the body. Now, and store it later for use. Now, when there's too much fat in the body, some of that fat begin to deposit along the walls of the blood vessel, okay? Now, your blood vessel is like a muscle, yeah? You know what muscles do? They contract, they relax, they contract, they relax, and actually that's how what moves is that pressure that moves blood along, okay, the whole of your body. Now, when you're having deposits of fat along the blood vessels, that creates resistance because they form plaques. They form plaques. Now remember, if you've seen a pipe before, a pipe in your house, right?
Oh, yeah.
When they are new, when you see the tubes of new pipes, they look very clean, right? They look very clean. But then after a period of time, after when you put all those, yucky things down the sink, okay, when the plumber comes to the house and they actually open the pipe and you look at it, you think, what happened? It looks very messy and yucky, and that's what the blood vessels of some of us are looking like. Okay, so you get these deposits of plaque forming along the blood vessels, and that creates resistance. It makes the blood vessels rigid. Okay, so that creates pressure. So your body, your blood vessels are having to use a greater pressure to move blood along, which is not good. Now, what happens over time? As you can imagine, there's thousands and thousands of these pipes, blood vessels in the body, okay? And they're all having this great pressure in them, okay? Over time, that back pressure causes effect on the heart, okay? Your heart is a thick muscle, which is basically squeezing, relaxing to move blood along, okay? Now, when there's pressure on your heart, over time, your heart begins to stretch. Your heart loses that elasticity, okay? And that's not good for the heart. That means that your heart begins not to function properly as a pump. Now, you may have heard phrases like heart failure. A doctor may have said to someone, oh, they got heart failure. It doesn't mean the heart has stopped. It just means that the heart is not functioning properly anymore as a pump. Yeah. So you remember like an elastic band, Patricia, when you have an elastic band, when it's new, it's tight, it's nice, you can use it to tie your hair. Yes, but when you keep stretching an elastic band, what happens? It becomes very lax, very floppy, and then that's what happens. So blood pressure actually has a lot of serious implications. Okay, so we can make a change through our diet, salt. Reduce salt level, reduce the amount of fat in your diet, cut out your carbohydrate, reduce it as much as possible. Now, in terms of numbers, Patricia, when you look at your blood pressure, there is two numbers, okay? There's a top number and there is a bottom number. Now, often the top number is always higher than the bottom number, okay? Because the top number is called the systolic blood pressure. What that means is the pressure your heart is using to squeeze blood out, okay, from the heart to different parts of the body, okay? Now, the bottom number, we call it the diastolic blood pressure. And that is when your heart is relaxed, okay, to fill up with blood, okay? So your heart fills up with blood on its right side and then releases blood to the part of the body on the left side, okay? So you need a greater pressure to send blood out of the heart to the different parts of the body. But of course, when the heart is relaxed, we don't need so much pressure, right? So that's when normally the bottom number is usually less. However, because they all mean two different things, okay? They mean different things. So when your top number is higher than normal, we are worried as doctors. And also if your bottom number if it's higher than normal, even if your top number is normal, we are still worried because they do have different meanings, okay? Now, what is normal in terms of blood pressure? Currently, the guidance says that the cutoff is 140 over 90. So that's like the cutoff, okay? 140 over 90. Now, of course, if you have a one-off blood pressure and your blood pressure is 140 over 90, we might want to check it again just to make sure that maybe it's a one-off, because ideally, we don't want you to be at the high of normal. So you should be aiming for really anything 130 and below in terms of the top number, and in terms of the bottom number, aim from anything 80 and below. Yeah. Now, normally people ask me, should I be worried if my blood pressure is low? Okay. We are not really worried about your blood pressure being low. In fact, we are very happy when your blood pressure is low. Okay. So if you're having a blood pressure like 110 over 60, we are not worried. It's only a problem if it's causing you symptoms. So sometimes some people, because of their low blood pressure, might feel dizziness, when they get up. So that's when it is an issue, okay? So often, or it may be if someone has a drastic drop in blood pressure, maybe there's something acutely wrong, something going on, often you would have other symptoms. But really, as a thumb of rule, we don't worry if your blood pressure is low. We are more worried if your blood pressure is high or because of the problems.
Oh, right, great. But when it's low, can it still cause havoc in your body when it's really severely low?
Oh, no. It's not going to cause any problems in your body. Of course, everybody needs a level of pressure for the heart to function. So we don't want your blood pressure to be like 60/50. That would be worrying. Do you understand? So that's not good. Okay. But we know people like athletes. Athletes tend to have low blood pressure. They tend to have even low heart rate. And that might be normal for them, because of their lifestyle. Okay. So we don't want anyone to be really abnormally low levels. And sometimes, often there is an underlying problem why they have that. Okay.
Yeah.
But if your blood pressure is, normally my blood pressure is like 105, over 100, over 70, that kind of thing. And that has been normal for me for a long time. So definitely there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So it's not causing any damage inside your body, if that's the question. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to compare high and low. Okay, great point there, Dr. Olivia. Right. I can see time is really moving, and I wanted to delve on. Right. The final question, the BMI. Actually, we didn't delve on the BMI.
Yes. Okay. So when we're talking about BMI, it's the body mass index. Okay.
Yes.
And basically, we're looking at whether someone is underweight, someone is normal weight, or someone is overweight. That's the simple terms. And the way we calculate it is we look at your weight in terms of kilograms, and we look at your height in terms of meters squared. Okay. So you basically put the number of your weight and your height into some form of calculation. Is there's an equation for it, and we come up with a number. Okay. Now, in terms of whether you are underweight, so anyone with a BMI below 18 is on the side of underweight. Okay. Anyone between 18 and 25 is within normal. Anyone above 25 and above is overweight. Okay. And then obviously, even from overweight, we can work out who is morbidly overweight, who is grossly overweight. Yes. So levels of being overweight. Of course, obesity is a big risk factor, okay, for heart disease, for diabetes, for high blood pressure, for stroke, so being overweight is not a good thing. And particularly when it comes to people of ethnic minorities, we tend to be on the big side, okay? Because I know culturally, being big is celebrated. But actually, I will tell you today, being big is not to be celebrated because it comes with a lot of diseases, okay? So, it's not something that we should be saying, oh, it's okay. It's something that we should be looking at and we should be addressing it, okay? So make sure that you're within the right BMI. And I would say that if you are of African origin, you should be aiming for a BMI of 23 and below. Okay, anything above that, you are increasing your risk of health problems. So that's what you should be aiming for. A BMI of 23 and below is what you should be aiming for. And you can easily do that. You can easily do that through your diet. Make changes to your diet. If you are not doing the right thing this moment, make sure you are exercising regularly. That will help you. Of course, speak to your doctors. We do have weight management programs. So do speak to your doctors and they will guide you on the things that you can do to help yourself. Okay?
Oh, that's very, very inspiring and very, very informative, Dr. Olivia. Finally, let me just break it down. How do we improve our health literacy as Islamic community? How I know you touched it as your last point. But summarize it into
I think knowledge is power. That's something that, over the last 2 years, I've become so passionate, particularly in educating people of our community. And I do a lot of work in that. I do have a Facebook page, which is dedicated to really helping people deal and address health issues. I also do a YouTube channel because of that. I have Instagram page for that, because I think it's so important that we educate ourselves, because often we educate ourselves about finances, we educate about ourselves about our work, we train ourselves, but when it comes to food, when it comes to our health, something so crucial, we lack the education, okay? And knowledge is power, because when you know what to do, when you have the right information, you're more likely to use it to your advantage and make the right choices, when it comes to your health. So you need to take steps. Like I said, be intentional about your health. You need to start changing your belief systems about health, okay? So if you're the kind of person that was very passive about your health, you just left it to, whatever happens will happen, this is the time to change that mindset, to change that attitude, and actually begin to look in ways that you can help yourself. I've mentioned some of that. It's to do with changing simple things like how you eat, when you eat, what you eat. It makes a difference. Even one step at a time can make a difference. Exercising regularly makes a big impact. Making sure that you are seeking help on time. I did mention about health checks, because often we pick up things just because you went to have your health check. So health check and doing it regularly, seeking help when you have symptoms. Don't ignore your symptoms when you see them. And of course, there's so many health programs out there. I'm actually in the process of putting something together in October. It's going to be a virtual conference, health conference, which is aimed at actually people of the kingdom, just to help the church and also to help people of our community, to really educate people and to empower people and to equip people with the right information. There'll be expert speakers coming to talk about different health issues. So I would hopefully pass information to Patricia to share with you, but also feel free to check out my YouTube and Facebook, and you will get that information as the time goes on.
Oh my word, what do I say? Thank you so much, Dr. Olivia. What an incredible session, and very, very empowering. As for me, I've learned so much, and I'm sure my health will never be the same again. Right, before we close down, before we go, Dr. Olivia, there's somebody there who wants to get in touch to you privately, or they want to join your sessions, or they want to take part in what you do. How can they get in touch with yourself, Dr. Olivia?
Okay, so I think I've said about the Facebook. So if you want to get in touch with me, I think the main way will be to send me a message on my Facebook platform. If you message me, because I normally don't give my personal numbers out unless.
Dr. Olivia, your
yes, it's at Dr. Ario. That's Facebook. But if you put Dr. Ario, actually, it will come up. So Dr. Ario on Facebook, also Dr. Ario actually on YouTube. If you type in Dr. Ario, it will just automatically come up, and you will see that there's a lot of videos there which will help you, empower you, and actually help you give the information you need about your health. I'm also on Instagram at Dr. O Ario. So that's another way of reaching out to me as well. And just introduce yourself and say hello, and I would get back to you. Yes.
Right, Dr. Olivia, thank you once again, and continue doing the good job you're doing. You're impacting your own community, you're influencing, and you're making a change. And you say knowledge is power. For me, I believe you share what you know. And if you don't know, endeavor to learn. Because that's where we can improve our lives. Because knowledge, I believe knowledge, it changes lives and it improves lives. Without knowledge, we wouldn't be where we are. Without knowledge, you wouldn't have been a doctor. Without knowledge, we wouldn't be in different professionals that most of us are. But most of all, it starts with that. Health, for me, is the key point. Without good health, everything else is relevant.
Is number one. Health is first, and everything else. Everything else.
Number one.
Thank you so much
once again, and continue inspiring others and doing a great job.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for fighting the pandemic. This has been incredible. I think these have been the most difficult, and trying times for doctors and nurses, trying to cope with the pandemic and trying to help and support those who've been affected. And I thank you so much on behalf of the Revival House team for a great job, and continue doing whatever you're doing moving forward.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I do appreciate you. Thank you.
Right. Viewers, we've come to the end of yet another inspiring session. That was incredible, inspiring. Remember, as she has said, knowledge improves lives, and I agree 100%. Yes. Tonight we were discussing about health literacy, how we need to improve our health, because we are what we eat. Your body will be around a lot longer than the expensive handbag you're carrying or the big machine you're driving. So invest in your health. Yes. And until next time, this is Patricia Wadroy for Revival House TV Talk Show. Have a good evening.